Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Godcraft 23. The date today is the 29th of the 7th, 25. A little bit of a special day. It's something called Black Top Day today. Pretty much being ex-Royal Navy, they used to issue what they call a tot of rum every day for people that were going to sea. And that all stopped in 1970 on the 31st of July, and to commiserate, they celebrate it every year. So that's Black Top Day. Just a quick note on the day after, I believe we finished the last Godcraft, which was Easter 25. I think it was the very next day the Pope died. Well, I'm mentioning it because Mr. Trump's envoy was I think he visited him in the last couple of his days of his life. Mr. Vance, I think he was called. Might be suspicious, might not be, who knows. But I thought I'd mention it because I haven't seen anything on the media mentioning it. Could just be coincidental timing. But anyway, now and again, when we're on the streets doing our homeless ministry, we get some people come up and give us something that we call a word. So this isn't from me, but this guy, I've never met him before. Probably a couple of weeks ago, he approached me and said, he gave me a chapter and verse from the Bible, and he said, "This is imminent." So I'm now going to read it out. It's from Revelation. If I can find it, bear with me. So this is to do with something called the sixth seal opened. "And I beheld, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a big tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind." Okay, that's the bit he wanted me to say. So with that in mind, before I go through our list for this particular Godcraft, there's been a lot of that kind of activity. We have quite a bit of celestial stuff coming up that I'll talk about a bit later, but if this is imminent, he will be talking possibly about the August eclipses, and I think we've got a solar eclipse and a lunar and a solar partial eclipse coming up. And I'm only mentioning that because recently on the news, so everyone's aware of Mr. Trump giving Mr. Putin a 50-day warning not so long ago. But recently he's lost his patience and said, "I'm going to shorten that 50-day warning." Now, I did a little bit of rough maths. I hope I'm wrong, but early August we've got a lot of this celestial stuff going on with what I normally go on about, the shooting stars, the meteor showers and such like. So we'll just, I don't know, maybe it's a period of time to watch, that's all I'm saying. Because that does fit in, middle of August, which we're now approaching, fits in with Trump's newly shortened timeline for warning Putin. So what's he going to surprise the world with, and will the timing be around that? Okay, so that's that bit there. We've just got a black pope appeared. The guy is appeared on the internet and started to talk. He's not called the Black Pope, but he's can't remember what his real name is now, but he's spouting a lot of religious stuff. It seems like well, we'll see, but he has mentioned that all of Paul's teaching are false. Paul is false is one of his statements. As we know, Paul wrote most of the New Testament, so be aware of that. Otherwise, I can't testify to what he's all about. But he seems to be someone trying to bring all the religions together, so that's something to be wary of. It says very clearly in the Bible about that. So there's a lot of Nazi stuff, re-emergence of Nazi propaganda, Nazis in the news, all of that kind of stuff. It's all been swinging round the moon cycles again. I know I bang on about this, but it seems when the heat's on with the stuff in the media, that's and when it gets bad, you realise that the timing is to do with what's going on up there in the skies, which it does say, by the way. The implication is there in that passage that I just read. Oh, by the way, the meteor shower in mid-August is called the Perseids, I think, and it's round a full moon. So it is, just keep an eye on that date. And again, I mean, I've been watching it for the last few months. I've got there's a lot of stabbings happening, and violence all around the world. And repeatedly, the dates are around the moon cycles and the asteroids and the shooting stars, as you'd say. Someone called Adam has been arrested in the UK for openly praying. So that's an attack, and that's an attack on free speech and against Christians and Christianity. That's which it says will happen in the end days, which is what the show is all about. If you don't know, it's not that I'm being a doom monger and all that. I'm just trying to explain to people that this is pretty real, and it's all unfolding as it says it will. But we're in the times now. I can always find someone to argue that we've been in the end times since the Second World War, and that's fair enough, but the heat is on now, as you can tell. We've just had 3 heat waves. 3 heat waves in the UK in July alone. And interestingly, the sun is at the apogee, apparently, which for all normal people who don't... I count myself as a normal person. For all people that don't look into these clever words, it means the sun is at its furthest from us. So we shouldn't have a heat wave at all, yet we've been constantly breaking heat wave record after heat wave record. I think this year's highest in London was 33 degrees, something like, yeah, pretty much. That's kind of around the when they had Wimbledon, I think, around that week. And apparently we're in for some more heat waves as well. Have we got I've recorded another demon for you. I walked out of a bar. This was just a woman, a middle-aged woman. I only got the oral, so there's no picture. I just walked out of a bar and I heard it, almost like I caused it as I walked. I kind of get this now and again. So by the time I missed most of it by the time I got my record button on the phone, but I'm just going to play you a little what I managed to capture. And this was just an innocent looking middle-aged woman sat at a bus stop. I kid you not. Ladies and gentlemen, demonic activity around the streets of Plymouth. Okay, what's next? Yeah, so I mentioned the Hitler thing. It's basically every time he comes up in the news media, that's like a sign of the darkness, the dark forces. You know, there's no need for him to be still talked about or brought up, but it's a sign. It's a sign that he's on the move, basically. So Hitler, there were some guys, I think it was 9 young men, arrested for celebrating Hitler's birthday. But I mean, I don't know why they needed to be arrested for it, other than to get it into the news. So I can't remember the date of that, but it was definitely someone called Adam who was arrested for praying. I think he was arrested for praying for an unborn baby. It's part of a anti-abortion thing. So so yeah, that definitely should be mentioned, because it's a crime. It's a hate crime against Christians, pretty much. Sorry about the long pause. I think I'm half asleep today. Yeah, a lot of civil unrest in Northern Ireland around this place called Ballymena, to do with the anti-immigration riots. I think it was a good 4-day riot in June, I think. But that was all around. That was around the full moon, over a weekend. It lasted 4 days. Kind of sprung up out of nowhere, just in that place in Ireland. I think we had one in Norwich as well, which was like a spin-off from that, but mainly in Northern Ireland. So tensions are on that. Everything to do with the darkness and hate, and it's all on the rise. Is my general point. Pause it there. There's a little St George's Day story I'll tell you. In Plymouth this year that happened. The main church at Plymouth is called St Andrew's Church, and on St George's Day this year they shut it down because they had some drunks being violent in the church. So that's quite unusual. Why does it matter? I hear, yeah, because I mean, you don't generally hear stories like that, but and it's relevant because it happened on a saint's day. That's why I mentioned it, and it's just another sign you can pick up that things are moving forward or backward, depending how you want to look at it. Because it does say the world is turned upside down as well, and we see that with lots of things. We see even, and I'm not going to use that example. I'm going to use the first will become last, and the last will be first. Everyone kind of knows that. I'm not sure what part of the Bible that's in, but an example of that would be, because this weekend just gone, England have just won the women's football, so that's a turnaround in the sports world, and that's the kind of thing that it's talking about. So before, no one would have thought of the women's team, but now they're climbing up. They're doing well, pretty much, and whereas the men's team haven't won anything major for quite a while. So that is an example of the first becoming last and the last becoming first. That's that. I was going to give you a couple of movies where that you've got the message of Jesus in it as well. Film called Bad Santa. That you watch that to a reasonable depth. You can see that there's the little kid in that. Well, there's a message of Christ in that movie, even though there's swearing and everything else in it. And a lot of movies that are in plain sight, there's that that message is there. Another one would be Narnia, the whole Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe thing. So watch it again and you'll see what I'm talking about. So the lion, obviously the king, gives up his life initially, sacrifices himself, but comes back at the end. That's kind of that's a Jesus story. The lion, and remember, Jesus was called the Lion of Judah, the Alpha and the Omega. So he's the full spectrum of humanity. I heard this. This isn't necessarily relevant, but I thought it was quite interesting. The amount of times we hear about terrorism these days, especially from America. But the bare facts are, and I'm sure someone will dispute this, but I think it was QI I heard it on, so they're pretty good at fact checking. That there's been more in America, there's been more, over the last 10 years, there's been more people killed by toddlers with guns than terrorists. So however much they go on in America about terrorism, that's your statistics for the last 10 years. Obviously that's not taking 9/11 into account, because that was more than 10 years ago. Okay then. Talking about, there's also been a lot of talk about two suns in the sky on I think there was even 4 suns in the sky in China, seen in China, something like that. But I'll focus on 2 suns at the moment, or another constellation, even something like that. There's loads of stuff. I've got it all written down, but you don't need. There's basically not a couple of days goes past where some news media or some YouTuber is caught, stuff in our close atmosphere that shouldn't be there, pretty much. We got the papers. Raising the state pension age, that's not really relevant. But this here, the homeless children, there's a report on, which is worse than ever, it's as bad as it's ever been. Record number of homeless children were living in temporary accommodation in March. This is going back a few months. Labour is failing to tackle the country's homelessness crisis. So yeah, that is a thing. We're seeing that on the street a bit more. I'm not going to read the whole article, but yeah, that's not good. So all the statistics to measure society's well-being are obviously going higher and higher, or worse and worse. That should be no surprise to anyone that watches this regularly. California burning. Yeah, we all know about the wildfires. Fears of violence engulf other cities. Violent demonstrations against Donald Trump's immigration raids. This is to do with immigration. June the 10th, 25. We got the former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo predicted, I believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. President Trump's administration wants to arrest 3,000 people a day in an unprecedented anti-immigration crackdown. Let's hope it doesn't get that bad in this country. Boy stabbed to death, 10th of June. Just a kid, but looks of it, another casualty of the rise in knife crime. I keep banging on about knife crime, I know. Where was that? Passed away in hospital. He was 14 years old. That's him. Schoolboy. Ibrahima Sek. Someone that was always smiling and happy, apparently. This is something that's relevant to the Bible. This is from, again, the 10th of June. Leading Harley Street consultant psychiatrist revealed the latest ideas and what's really going on behind closed door of private clinics. This is to do with gentle parenting, but basically it's a story of there's a passage in the Bible that says spare the rod and spoil the child. So this is about not being able to discipline children and the kids going off the rails. It's called gentle parenting. I don't think this is a new thing, but it's been in the paper. It's just telling the children are getting worse. The behaviour is getting worse. That's not a new thing or surprising. He needs it's just an article about the children have got no boundaries now, especially after COVID. Something else that's getting worse because we've walked away from getting away from what it says in the book. Another knife attack, 2nd of May. Ferocious violence. Police are hunting a killer of a British woman stabbed to death in a frenzied attack in the Dordogne. Married mother of 4, Karen Carter, was found outside a property owned and rented out. Sounds like in Bordeaux. Another on the same page. 14-year-old boy arrested and two teens hurt in knife attack. Teenager arrested. 15-year-old boy and 14-year-old girl were stabbed outside a shop. It's terrible. Child poverty, unbearable levels, warns paediatricians. This is our local Plymouth newspaper. Again, every metric seems to be getting worse. Yellowstone. I ought to mention that. You'll all, whether you're aware or not, if you're an American, you'll all be aware of what Yellowstone is. I don't mean the TV series. It's like a huge volcano over there, and a lot of the experts are saying that's the one to watch. And if that went up, that would be something else. So maybe let's hope that ain't the one that the Bible was just the guy that told me something was imminent. Hope it ain't that one. So, talking about Yellowstone, I've been watching now for about a month, I suppose. YouTube videos showing animals leaving in droves. It's really spooky. They're like wild animals, like bears. They're just all queued up like they were at the supermarket, all walking in the same direction. It's just strange. And you get your deers, everything. They're all like, but they're sticking together like queues. They're just like walking along like orderly. That's what's strange about it. So let's see what that means. But they're getting out for some reason. ChatGPT. That was on the news recently as well, and all the reports are back about that having a really damaging effect on children and the vulnerable. So it's apparently ChatGPT and artificial AI. The more people use it, especially the vulnerable and the young, it's basically they're saying it's causing psychosis. It's causing mental illness because it blurs the lines between non-reality and reality. That's causing mental illness and psychosis. That's not me. That's from someone at King's College did that study. I just found it interesting. That came out in the last couple of weeks, so that would have been July this year. Little bit of a random thing about seashells. There is evidence of seashells around the top of Everest. So that would kind of make sense of Noah's flood story a bit more, if you don't believe in such things as you know, maybe literally the Bible did mean that the whole world was underwater. Whereas you might read the Bible at first and say, ah, they're just on about a little area where Noah was, or parts of the world. But the more science is discovering, the more I keep saying it, that this book is probably spot on. And even if Everest was underwater, that would make sense of why there might be seashells on the top of Everest. Of course, another answer could be that birds are flying up there and dropping them. Okay, you have to give it a fair crack, but I'm assuming that if they're going to make a statement like that, they've dug them up, you know, so it doesn't look like it's been dropped. But again, I'm sure someone will follow that up better than I can. So floods, yeah, all the floods. I'm not going to go individual into, but we've all seen it on the news. Biblical level floods in New York City, Mexico, Alabama, even Russia, and the waters are the eyewitnesses are. I mean, it's all big floods up to your shoulder. You know, houses are being swept away down the street, and out of nowhere, you know, people are having a year's rain in like minutes. I think the New York one, when said it went up not in like an hour, like 20 or 30 feet or something like that. So it must be that the waters are coming from somewhere else. A lot of people are speculating that the waters are coming from underground. Or where would that amount of water come from so quickly? That's being talked about as well. But yeah, all of it around the new moon cycles and the shooting star activity seems to make it worse and spark it off. That's what my observations are telling me, which is just watching the news and doing a bit of digging, really. So keep your eye out for early August, and hopefully we'll be here for the next one. And yeah, stay safe.